Tryna say I'm only in the me. Got a cold with my dogs, can't get in between. I can give them life, no more energy. Amen. Amen.
What's up, everybody? It's Doc. Unfortunately, JJ can't be with me here today, but he's going to be on future videos. And you guys have seen us a lot with the primetime parlays for NFL. NFL is obviously done, but there's still primetime NBA games, so we're coming back with more primetime parlays. Today, we have the Celtics facing the Philadelphia 76ers, and then the Spurs going against the Suns. We went up crazy on the NFL season, and we're going to try and do it again for you guys this NBA season. So we'll kick things off with the Celtics and Sixers game. And I do want to start off by saying this game is less simple, or I should say more complicated than a lot of people seem to be making out to be, because these teams have played each other a lot in the past few years. There's been a playoff series. They play each other 3-4 times a year. We know this. The issue is everybody's been healthy at different times. I was looking into Drew Holiday rebounds earlier today. Maybe it was even last night. And I realized that there's only been one game where Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Maxey, and Embiid have all been healthy. And that was last November. So even that holds very little weight. Now you throw in the fact that there's a lot of other players to consider. There's Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. The Sixers have added Paul George. They had Caleb Martin. They swapped him out for Quentin Grimes. Cornette's getting more minutes. Boston's running more two big lineups. All those games in the past mean significantly less than I think people are treating it as, but there is still little details we can take out of them, mainly in the coaching. I think one thing that's going to be consistent with both these teams is the coaching structures and systems will stay the same. And we can start with the Boston offensive side, the Philadelphia defensive side. And the number one thing that I want to get into is Nick Nurse, because the big thing with Nick Nurse is he wants to blitz the number one guy. And I think this is the best example of that. This is from, I think, their February 2nd game. There was no Embiid in this one, sorry. But this screenshot goes to show most of what I want to talk about, because at the surface, this ends up being a play where Brown gets it to Tatum. Tatum swings it to Hauser. Hauser takes it a three. And at the surface, it looks like this is Hauser's man and he's just sagging off. When you actually let it play out, you realize that Hauser's man is actually Reggie Jackson. And I think this is Bona is guarding Cornette. Bona has to come out here because Reggie Jackson is so focused on Jason Tatum that he basically leaves Hauser open and says, I can get there when Tatum swings it. Obviously doesn't see the Cornette screen. Tatum sees it, which is why he swings this pass and he's so open. But this is just a perfect example of Nick Nurse loading up on Jason Tatum and forcing other guys to beat him. If you guys want to, I could pull up a bunch of different screenshots that look pretty similar to this. Either that or Tatum's getting at the elbow and they have a guy helping on the other nail, a guy coming off the block, and he can just pick his poison there. Or pick and roll. They blitz him off the pick and roll. He's swings it out to the pick and pop or anything like that. Basically, the whole core of it is he wants to usually focus a lot on the primary option and blitz them, and it's no different than he does no different against Jason Tatum. So Jason Tatum has seen a lot of success in the passing game against Philly. The next thing that I want to get into is on the Boston defensive side with Embiid, because I'm going to play, these are all 5 Embiid's threes from their last matchup. And again, we're cherry picking the ones he actually takes. But the one thing you're going to see pretty consistently in all these videos is they are perfectly fine letting him have the three. They play drop coverage. We've always known this. But neither of these two have any intention of stepping out to Embiid once Maxey passes it out. They say, hey, you can shoot that. You're not, as long as you're not driving, we're chilling over here. So they're letting him take these shots and step into these wide open three-pointers. It's just as long as he has the confidence to take them. I mean, he made 4 of 5 in the last matchup. If you're going to leave him open, why would he not take him? And you see it again. Horford doesn't even put a hand up. He says, please, please take that three. Don't drive on us. And again, pick and pop. It's going to be pretty consistent throughout. I see no reason, as long as he can knock down one of his first 3 or 4 attempts, why they don't just go to it again. So those are the main pieces that I wanted to talk about there. And the last one that I want to talk about is not so much showing on film, but about Boston's offensive game plan, because as we know, they have one of the best structured offenses in the NBA, mostly because of the players that they have. They have 5 guys, especially with their starters, that can go and get a bucket on anybody. So what Boston likes to do is pick your weakest defender, force a switch on him, either force a switch with Tatum or just whoever he's guarding, that's who's getting the ball in that play, and they're going to make you work. Against the Wizards, it's Jordan Poole. Against Miami, it's Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero. Against the Cavs, it's Darius Garland, just for some examples. The issue here is the Sixers are surprisingly well constructed defensively in terms of individual matchups. Maxi's probably their worst one, but he's buffed up a little bit this summer. He's not exactly like a very strong defender now, but he's by no means one that you can just target consistently and go at him every bucket. Paul George is more than serviceable. Quentin Grimes, I think, is a great defender. Who else? I think Eric Gordon's out in this one, but um, Yabusele is another great defender. So the best thing you can target is Joel Embiid's drop coverage, but I don't think um, Joe Mazzulla is like, hey, we want you to step into as many pull-up threes as possible. Those are generally lower percentage shots, but that's their weakest matchup that they can target is just those uncontested pull-ups. So we'll see kind of how they do on it. I don't think it's as clear-cut as it usually is for a Boston match where you say, hey, who's the weakest defender? That's who we're going at. So what I'd target in this game, the two spots is Jason Tatum's facilitating and Embiid being given space to shoot open shots. All right, that's all we have for the Boston game. Let's get into the Spurs and Sixers game. And there's one big piece of news to talk about. Came out today. Victor Wembanyama out for the remainder of the season, deep vein thrombosis, which is pretty serious, by the way. Like, that's a pretty concerning thing to read about. So well wishes to him. Hope he gets better and recovers. But for the sake of this video, I will not be talking about anything defensively for the Spurs because I think any statistic that we talk about goes out the window when you consider the fact that all those defensive stats take into account Victor Wembanyama. But we can start on the Suns' defensive side of the ball because defensively in the pick and roll, they are the 9th worst team in the NBA, which makes sense because they're also one of the worst teams to defend the paint, and I think they're the very worst in the NBA against pull-up shooting. So guards, people who can go and get their own shot, find a lot of success against the Suns. The issue with that is, who do you target when you're the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama? You have Chris Paul, you have De'Aaron Fox, you have Devin Vassell, you have Stephen Castle. All these guys can go and get their own shot. So how do we muddle through everything? Well, we can start off by who's not scoring. Harrison Barnes, Julian Champagnie, Jeremy Sohan, all those guys, Keldon Johnson, they'll get their spots here and there. They might get hot here and there. I want no business depending on them to score. Those guys depend on other people getting them the ball when they're open or cutting to the basket or getting in transition. I don't really care for that. But in terms of muddling through the four that I mentioned earlier that have the best spots, it gets a little weird, and there's nothing statistically that I can give you, especially because of the Fox acquisition coming in and messing everything up. So I can tell you my thoughts on the matter. First off, I think I don't want much part of Fox, even though it's a great spot. He usually does well in this matchup. But for me, the way I see it is you already have trouble getting assimilated to a new team when you have a running mate like Wembanyama. It does make it easier, but it takes a few games. And then once you're finally starting to get your footing a little bit, the guy that you're running every play with, Victor Wembanyama, is now out. So it's almost like playing your first game again. And I think it might mess with Fox's flow a little bit. If he gets hot, it's not going to matter. He'll just go and get his own shot. He's De'Aaron Fox. But I think it's going to be harder for the positive match to come to fruition, which then brings me to Chris Paul and Devin Vassell because while I do like their matchups, I still think Fox is holding enough of the ball to kind of contradict their work. And I don't think either of them are in great spots to say, oh, yeah, they're going to take advantage of the pull-up matchup and go off because Fox is still there. Which leaves us with Stephen Castle, who still kind of falls under that umbrella of, oh, Fox is going to have the ball. But Castle is athletic. He's electrifying. He can go on ball, off ball, get in transition. He has a little bit more depth to his game where he doesn't need as much usage to make the impact that he wants to make. We've seen that when Wemby's on the court. And I think with Wemby off and just having Fox have more of the ball now, I think we can still see it. And the other reason I really like Castle is we saw reports after the trade went down that one of the reasons Fox wanted to come to the Spurs was because of the young guys like Stephen Castle. So I think if he can't lean on Wemby, I think, or not like Stephen Castle. Stephen Castle specifically, he reached out to him and said, I want you to stay here. I want you to play with him. So I think with Wemby out, I think Fox is going to want to lean on Castle a little bit more if he's giving the ball up to anybody, if he's running a play for anybody. And I think Castle can just take advantage of not that the Suns are unathletic, but they don't have any of those guys where it's like a Kelly Oubre or somebody where you can't really blow by him. You can blow by most of the guys on this defense. I think Castle can find his little gaps and get to the basket when he wants. I think he'll have a good game in this one. And plus, I think everybody's lines are inflated a little bit. I think Castle isn't inflated enough. Like the Cells line went up when the Wemby news came out. Fox's line went up 2-3 points. Chris Paul went up 2 points. Castle went up a little bit. I don't think it went up enough. So I think he's the best value in this game. So putting all that together, we get to use a no sweat token on FanDuel. And this is the parlay we come up with. We have Jason Tatum, 6 assists, Joel Embiid, 2 threes. Like we said, they're going to give up way too much attention to Tatum. They always do. So he should be able to get a 6 assists. And they leave Joel Embiid wide the fuck open from 3. So he should be able to knock down 2 threes. On the Spurs and Suns side, I actually didn't get into it as much as I should have. But Booker assists, I mean, ever since Beal got moved to the bench, and now even more so with the Nick Richards trade, his facilitating usage has just been insane. I think I have the screenshot right here. This is games with everybody healthy since the Nick Richards trade, and these are not normal in terms of potential assist numbers for De'Aaron Fox. It's been a lot of, with Bradley Beal moving to the bench and more pick and roll with Nick Richards rather than handoff with Nurkic, Tyus Jones really isn't taking the point guard duties anymore. It's really just been all Devin Booker. So outside of this one game against Portland where he only had 3 potential assists, he's just been stacking a bunch of potentials in games with everybody healthy since that trade. So Devin Booker to get 7 assists, I think, is really nice. And then Stephen Castle, 15 points. I've talked enough about that. The max on the no sweat token was $5. So we put $5 to win 70. Appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's keep making some money. I'll put the autofill link in the description below. And good luck tonight.